Number 37, can you help us out, please,
Yes.
Soundarya?
Evam nirantarabhyasta brahmaiva smiti vasana haratya vidya vikshepa roganiva rasayanam. The impression, I am Brahman, thus created by constant practice, destroys ignorance and the agitations caused by it, just as medicine or rasayana destroys diseases.
Yes. So if we have an affliction, so you have an infection, you go to the doctor gives you penicillin shots. Or if you've got some GI problem, they give you probiotics to fix it. Now, what doesn't work is this. The medicine tastes so bad and it makes me feel funny. I'm going to hire you to take the medicine for me. Will that work? Each of us must take our medicine for ourselves. And here we're introduced to the practice called jnana abhyasa. Abhyasa means practice, the practice of knowledge. Now, it does not mean I sit in meditation and go, I am Brahman, I am Brahman, I am Brahman, I am Brahman. That's a useless waste of speech. What does it mean? It means the constant practice of this inquiry into myself nature. So I get an inkling, a flash, a direct experience. I'm not the body, I'm not the feelings, I'm not the thoughts, I'm not any personal sense of self. I'm not an individual. What am I? In the space between my thoughts, with the attentive faculty turned inward. What do you see? There's nothing there, Jim. That's right. Yet you are not no thing. We're not nothing. Even though it's vast and empty like space, it shines as pure awareness. Bhava, being. So it means we take up the practice. If I feel like a person, I'm in the state of ignorance, I'm deluded. If I feel like a person, I am tall, I'm short, I'm male, I'm female, I'm good, I'm bad, I'm successful, I'm a failure, I'm okay, I'm not okay, I'm lovable, I'm not lovable. Whatever qualifier I add to that is always about the equipment. It's about my body. It's about my mind. It's about my intellect. It's not about me. And whenever I feel like I'm a person, three things arise simultaneously. This personal sense of self, go, most frequently the world outside. I need to fix it, change it, do something to it in order to be happy. Sometimes it's I need to change me. And the third element we call kartavya, literally translated as obligatory action. What it means is struggling. In order to be okay, I, the individual, have to go from point A to point B. Shankara here says over and over and over again, See if I can remember. If I feel like I'm a person, if I feel like I'm Jim, the body, I'm deluded. Stop. Stop the whole craziness of the struggle of ego. And instead, introvert the attentive faculty. Notice who you are. We've had all these images without form, without qualities, without taint, without dirt. Vast and empty like the sky. And we do over and over and over till we become rooted in this. The closest thing I can come to, if any of you have ever had a friend or someone you may know who's dealt with various dysmorphia problems. One that we all know about, a lot is anorexia. Do you know anybody who's got anorexia?
Mm-hmm.
So the issue is the person who's got anorexia believes they're fat. And it's very hard to bust through those layers of belief. No, weighing 86 pounds and being 5'6" is not slim and trim. Oh, when I bend over, see, I've got a wrinkle. No, that's your skin wrinkling. Photographs. This is what you look like. This is a normal, healthy person. Look. It takes a lot to be able to bust through. It takes practice. People don't get over anorexia overnight. And any other kinds of, misapprehensions. When Puneet used to work for the Learning Guild, they used to have to deal with imposter syndrome. So what would the kids there, what was the issue?
They had a belief that they weren't good enough to learn and get good at what they were trying to build and all of the projects they were trying to accomplish.
Yeah. These are mostly marginal populations learning IT, right? Yeah. But they were good enough, weren't they?
Mm-hmm.
So how do you convince them? You just don't repeat, I'm good enough, I'm smart enough, I'm good enough, I'm smart enough. Is that going to do it?
No.
What did you do?
Have them work on projects and see that they could do it.
Direct experience. So this is jnana abhyasa, the practice of knowledge, until we root out the false impression, I am the body, I am an individual with qualities and characteristics that needs to be protected and defended. I was working with a fellow. He'd been a high-powered person in executive sales, and he made a whole lot of money, had a couple houses and boats and stuff like that. It just trashed his life with drug addiction. And it was so hard to well, I'll just share with you what he said to me. Jim, I need a new narrative. When I'm talking with people and they ask me who I am, I have no narrative anymore. I mean, I can't tell them I'm a loser. It's like, I need a narrative. And what does that say? What does that say? He has to have a story that defines who he is. That's the world. He's not unique at all. That's the state of ignorance. Here Shankara is saying, give up all the narratives. Now, there's a very famous Zen proverb. If you meet the Buddha on the road, kill him. What does it mean? One of ego's strategies in order to maintain itself is, I've had these spiritual experiences. I am now getting somewhere. I think I might be enlightened or close to it. And I certainly, know it now. I mean, I, me, mine, look what I, me, mine know. That's another illusory identification. We have to make sure we drop that one. In Bhagavad Gita, the second chapter, Krishna says, he who knows it not. Meaning the person who's got it all worked out. Yeah, I got it figured out. And you can tell it because these are people, usually when they're in social situations, they've got to tell you how enlightened they are or how spiritual they are. They have what Trungpa called spiritual materialism. But then the next phrase that Krishna uses is, she who knows it not, knows it. Meaning when we can drop the mind. And unknown. Then the no thingness of our real nature becomes apparent. Any thoughts? Any questions?
I have one.
Yes, ma'am.
Why does that scare people? Why are people afraid of the no thing?
Because everything you've ever thought was important and that you identified with goes right out the window.
That seems liberating to me. But a lot of people.
Yeah, we're old people.
I guess so. Maybe that's why. That's a good point.
And you've done some practice. But the idea that let me give you another real life example. Way back in the Jurassic period, in the late 60s, early 1970s, I was living in San Diego and I worked for the Sharp Rehabilitation Center. And I was the aide to the rehab counselors. I basically drove a bus is what I did. The vast majority of our clients were teenage boys who had been incredibly reckless, breaking their back in skiing accidents, diving into a shallow end of a swimming pool and breaking their necks. These were people, we were dealing with spinal cord injuries primarily. Now, can you imagine some studly 17-year-old, who's on some sports team and like V cat's pajamas with the ladies, all of a sudden being paralyzed from the neck down, can't wipe his own tushy. And very soon, of course, the muscle tone atrophies. These kids wanted to commit suicide. Very, very common. Horrible depression. Why? Because their idea of self was shattered. So that's what I'm talking about. Rare is the person for whom the loss of self, the small self, seems attractive. Very good question. Very good question. All right, any other thoughts, comments, questions? Next verse.
Vivikta deshe asino virago vijitendriya bhavaye tekatmanam tam ananta mananyadhi. Sitting in a solitary place, freeing the mind from desires and controlling the senses, meditate upon the Atman, which is one without a second, with unswerving attention.
Yes. So, up to this point, Shankara has been giving us exercises in contemplation, largely to do as we're reading, as we're thinking, working in the world. Now he's giving us simple but specific meditation instruction. Now, let's go back to our Art of Meditation class. So in the beginning, if you can do 5 minutes a day, that's great. You can increase it to 10, that's even better. Eventually, you want to get up to 20 minutes. You're doing really well. Now we're talking about serious meditation. Meditating 30, 40 minutes a day, an hour at a time. The basic rule of thumb in practice of meditation is the grosser the mind, the more meditative supports. What do I mean by a meditative support? Place to park your mind. So, people get into all sorts of, arguments. Well, in my tradition, they tell us to watch our breath. No, well, I think it's scanning the body. That's the way I was taught. No, I was told you chant a mantra. You visualize Lord Shiva. Try to see the blue pearl. The object of attention in the end is not really that important. In the beginning, it's a place to park your mind. Then as thoughts and feelings arise, just let them go. Don't get caught up in the story, the theme of your thinking. It's like sitting on the bank of a river. You just watch the mind go. Now, as your mind becomes more quiet, meaning more subtle, purer, we drop away the meditative supports. I've had people come to me and say, oh, this Guruji, he gave me an assignment. I'm supposed to do 1,008 repetitions of my mantra every day. I've been doing it. I'm so good at it. I've been doing it for 20 years and nothing's happened. Maybe you're quieter than the mantra. So, how to meditate? The quieter your mind, let the technique, the point of attention, the point of concentration drop away. Then endeavor to find the space, the between the thoughts. Our traffic up and down Grand Avenue is such a great metaphor for the mind. So at 4 o'clock in the afternoon, the sound of the traffic seems like pretty much a constant. Now, the sound rises and falls as the various vehicles go by, just like my thoughts. But most of us have the experience that my thought flow is constant. But if I'm up at 3 o'clock in the morning, I awaken, have to go to the loo, come back to bed, the window's open. Oh, it's quiet outside. You know when the light has changed because maybe 1 or 2 cars go by. You could hear the sound come out of silence, pass, and then go back into silence. So after a while, our meditation, the flow of thought, the frequency of thought, the volume of thought gets turned down. And we see a thought arises out of silence and then goes back into silence. In that silence, in the space between your thoughts, see if you can notice who or what sees the thoughts and the space between the thoughts. And as the mind gets caught up with thinking, bring it back. Endeavoring to keep the mind as still as possible. Now, if in a 20 or 30 or 40-minute meditation, you can have moments of complete quiescence. In Gita, the end of the 6th chapter, which is the yoga meditation, Arjuna says to Krishna, "Oh, Krishna, controlling the mind is like trying to control the wind. Is it impossible?" And Krishna says, "You're right. It's very difficult, but it can be accomplished through practice. There's no secret." Let me give you a worldly parallel. So, Pamela, you may be able to relate to this as a singer. So, I would have kids say to me, and in my own vocal training, "Well, how do you get high notes? You know, do I turn left, lift my head? You know, what's the technique to get the high note?" And I would say, "Well, you do scales every day, and you vocalize up to the highest note you can do. Do that for a week, and maybe the next week you try adding a half step. Stretch a little bit. You take the time to build a vocal technique. You don't achieve it overnight. There's no gimmick to high notes. It's abhyasa, practice. And it's the same with dance. Same with working out at the gym. Oh, I want to lift 250 pounds today. How am I going to do that? You don't do it overnight. Take the time to build it. So this discipline of the mind, there's a wonderful term in Gita called yoga rudha. Arudha is a riding term. Frequently, Ashwarudha, the Raja Ashwarudha, he mounted his steed. So yoga rudha means to mount the steed of the mind. So if you've got a spirited animal and you're on the ground and you're holding the bridle, it's going back and forth. It's really a challenge to try to mount the steed and then get into the saddle. And sometimes the horse will be going like this and you're hopping on one leg. Guess how I know this? So once you've got a well-trained horse, and you put your foot in the stirrup and swing your leg over, and you've got the horse between your knees and the reins are gathered, you are in dominion. You are in control of this incredibly powerful animal. So the yogi needs to attain to yoga rudha, to mount the steed of the mind. I'm willing to do anything for the rest of eternity. I'm willing to do without anything for the rest of eternity. I'm willing for it to be just as it is for the rest of eternity. I let all sensory data just pass through like water passing through a wicker basket. Able to bring the mind easily to a single point. And then when the mind is still and quiet, inquiry into my self-nature. Who am I? What is my essential nature? Or as the Zen people say, what was my face before my mother's birth? Any thoughts on this? Basic review on meditation. Does anyone who's got some experience have anything they wish to add? Meditation is not a problem-solving session. It's not a time to channel, get messages. It's not about seeing anything or hearing voices. I remember I was talking with some friends, and this one gal says, "Oh yes, God talks to me. I hear his voice. He tells me what to do all the time." And another friend of mine who happens to be schizophrenic says, "Oh, I hear those voices too, and I don't take my meds." It's not what it's about. Now, you can do those other particular practices, problem solve, get intuitive teaching on things, etc. But that's not meditation. Those are other practices. Not wrong, they're not bad, they're just not meditation. Any thoughts, any questions? Anybody in Zoom land have anything they want to add? Now, again, this does not mean the preparatory practices. You may engage in a tradition. I'm just pulling this out of my head. Say you're studying Kriya Yoga. and you have breathing techniques and visualization techniques. That's your meditation. Nothing wrong with that. All of these sorts of things are preparatory. Oh, I do a Vishnu Sahasranam every day, the 1,000 names of Vishnu. It's fine, but it's preliminary. It's preliminary. It's not the meditation on yourself that Shankara is talking about. All right, next verse.
Atmanyeva kilam drishyam pravilapya diya shuddhihi bhavaye deka atmanam nirmalakshat vatsada. The wise one should intelligently merge the entire world of objects in the Atman alone and constantly think of the self as being ever uncontaminated like space.
So there are two ways at least to look at this shloka. What Shankara is pointing at is what we call nirvikalpa samadhi. Nir means without, vikalpa means a movement, a perturbation. Sama equal be mind. Absolute quiescence of mind. All vikalpas, all movements are gone, including the vritti of spiritual ignorance. Nirvikalpa samadhi is like deep sleep in that there is no individual, you don't have an ego in deep sleep. There's no world. You don't see a world in deep sleep. Deep sleep, you still have one vritti. That's total ignorance. Your experience in deep sleep is I know nothing. In samadhi, you shine. Individuality and the world is gone. Gatte gatte param gatte parasam gatte bodhi swaha. Gone, gone, completely gone, beyond, totally awake. Wow. That's one interpretation of this verse. Another interpretation of this verse. We have two statements about the world that seem to be contradictory. They come from scripture. Brahma Satyam Jagan Mithya. Brahman alone is real. The phenomenal world, all the objects, the world of name and form is mithya, illusory, a lie, fake news. But then the Chandogya Upanishad thunders, Sarvam Kalvidam Brahma. Sarvam Idam, all this, meaning the phenomenal world, Kalu, verily, is Brahman. Make up your mind, Jim. Is it illusion or is it God? Yes. We have to reconcile that. So what the world seems to be for you and me. Now, I, Jim, am over here, and I peep out at a world, a universe of name and form, and it's solid, and it's joy-giving and misery-producing, and I've got a world of feelings and thoughts inside, and those are pretty damn real. I am a body that moves around in that world. That all seems real. This verse says it's not true. And this is the way we go about it. If you close your eyes and imagine an elephant, what's your elephant look like? Mine's an African elephant today. Big old huge ears. It's got big long tusks. It's a mummy elephant. And it's got a little calf along with it. Could you visualize an elephant? Now, let's talk about causation. What is the material cause of your imaginary elephant? What did you make it out of? Right. You did not have to take ivory tusks and elephant skin and stuff like that and stuff it in your ears. No. Your mind has this capacity. It's the stuff of the mind itself. Instrumental cause. When a potter creates a pot, he does it on a potter's wheel. That's the instrument. What instrument did you use? My mind. Who did it? Efficient cause. When a potter creates a pot, the potter is different than the pot. No. I did it. So when it comes to the elephant of my imagination, the material cause, the efficient cause, the instrumental cause is all just my mind. They're merged. Now, the elephant of my imagination isn't real. I just visualized it. It's just a kind of thought. All right? Let's set that on the shelf. Now, I go to bed at night, fall asleep, took my melatonin and my magnesium. That makes me dream. So I dream I'm on a safari in Africa. I'm in a Jeep. We're driving through the plain or whatever it is. And there's a herd of elephants going across the road in my dream. And this mummy elephant turns and she goes, her ears go out and she goes after the Jeep. They put it in reverse. They start driving backwards and she's chasing the Jeep, you know. Whoa. I thought for sure we were going to get attacked and squished by the elephant. What a weird dream. To the dreamer, the dream elephant seemed real. My dream body in the dream Jeep seemed like me. I had a dream ego identified with that dream body. And I perceived the Jeep, and I perceived the grasslands, and I perceived the elephant herd. And I had these feelings, great joy, and then all of a sudden some anxiety. And to the dreamer, they seemed real. They seemed just as real as us sitting here looking at the couch, table, carpet. But when I awaken, I see that the elephant of my dream and the elephant that I imagined when we did the exercise were not fundamentally different. What was different is in the dream I had the additional vritti of sleep, meaning ignorance, which caused me to think that the elephant was real. I did not know it was imaginary until I woke up. Shankara is saying all this comes about like a dream. It's different as who's doing the dreaming. Brahma Satyam, consciousness alone is real. Jagan Mithya, the names and forms are ephemeral. They're just imagined. They're illusory. Sarvam Kalvidam Brahma, all this is verily Brahman. When I see a couch, when I see a table, when I see fives, what's really there is consciousness. Nothing to be afraid of. It's just vibration held together by thought. It's consciousness. Just like the child who thinks the arc of the rainbow is something solid. Mommy, let's get in the car and go find the end of the rainbow. Mommy says, no, dear. The rainbow is just light passing through moisture in the air. We can drive ahead and we never find the end of the rainbow. Or the classic Vedantic image. You're traveling through the desert and you see what looks like an oasis ahead. And your perception is water and your knowledge is water. And you keep moving toward the oasis and it continues to recede. Then you realize, oh, it's a mirage. Now listen carefully. My senses continue to report what looks like water, but my knowledge is sand. So my senses continue to report a world of name and form. People, places, things, and conditions, a body, feelings, thoughts. But my knowledge is, it's just the play of consciousness. If I know that, I have merged the world. So we have those two understandings of the verse. One has to do with the mind state of no mind, called Nirvikalpa Samadhi. The other is, I have merged the universe into the self through my understanding, seeing it for what it is. Both are important interpretations of this verse. Any thoughts on this?
I understand this as a spiritual premise, but we were almost crushed by a real elephant in Africa. We would have been dead. That there are consequences to
No,
the
dear.
reality of
Your body may have been squished.
yeah, my body. Absolutely.
You
Just
do
my
not
body.
die. I
Yes.
tell you, let's hypothesize. Let's say your body got squished.
Yes. Very likely.
It is like going to the beauty parlor and getting your hair cut. Right now, you can pull on your hair. I am attached to my hair.
Right. I hear you. But
You
you know,
go to the beauty parlor, snip, 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 and it falls on the ground. And where is your locus of identity? You're not on the bottom of the beauty parlor going, oh, I'm cut off.
I agree. You are definitely gone. But the elephant is real in that sense, in the sense of being able to crush your body.
Well, and if you dreamt it, the dream elephant would feel just as real.
More than likely.
What Shankar is saying for the person of steady wisdom, and this is also the result of deep meditation. This is not just philosophy. This is the insight that comes from practice. We see that all of this is just mine. It never touches me. Now, in the Mandukya Upanishad, in the 4th chapter, Gaudapada basically says, for those with the most subtle intellects, control of the mind is not necessary. You get it. And the world is no longer has any power to afflict us. But for others of middling intellect, control of the mind is necessary, meaning samadhi can be incredibly valuable. Shankara teaches samadhi as something for which you work in Viveka Chudamani. Got to be very careful because you don't want to make samadhi another object of desire and you have romantic ideas about what's it's supposed to be like. Essentially, any time the mind is free from vimarsha, any deliberation of any kind, that is samadhi. And it can free us if we pay attention to that. They do not need to be long periods. Even little flashes of it can be very, very useful. Anybody have anything else they want to add to this? Okay, would you read the English of that one more time with this discussion in mind?
The wise one should intelligently merge the entire world of objects in the Atman alone and constantly think of the self as being ever uncontaminated like space.
So I am never contaminated, but also what appears as a world of name and form. If your mind gets very, very thin, there's a state called tanu manasaha, thinness of mind. The world starts to thin out. Feels like you can just stick your hand right through the whole thing. Because the mind is the world and the world is the mind. All right. Next verse. We've done 3 so far, right?
Yes.
Correct.
Rupa Varnadikam Sarvam Vihaya Param Arthavit Paripurna Chidananda Swarupena Vatishthathe. He who has realized the Supreme discards all his identifications with the objects of names and forms. Thereafter, he dwells as an embodiment of the infinite consciousness and bliss. He becomes the self.
Yes. And this is a usage of word of verbiage that Shankara likes. Chidananda Rupa. What is my form? Bliss, consciousness. So here, Shankara is now defining what is a Jivan Mukta, a person who's liberated while they're alive, who has a liberated personality, who's awake. Very simply, they no longer identify with the body, mind, intellect. Instead, they are identified as Chidananda, bliss, consciousness. One of my favorite definitions of a sthita prajna purusha. Purusha means a person who is sthita prajna, steady wisdom. Comes from Gita. That person who casts off all the desires, all the cravings of the mind, satisfied in the self, by the self. Then they are said to be a person of steady wisdom. So the mark of the person of steady wisdom who knows Aham Brahmasmi, I am Brahman, they no longer have any fear. They have what I call existential freedom. And when then they see the fundamental voidness of the world is not bad. Ultimately, in the end, it's all God. But the forms are shunyata. They're empty. I like to use the term, the world starts to become trinkets and baubles. For the person in ignorance. Oh, my boyfriend left me, I'm alone. That's such serious business. I got fired from my job. Who am I now? That was my whole world. Or the kid who has a spinal cord injury. I'm not a stud anymore. Oh. All of that meaningless to the woman of steady wisdom. Now, the surface part of the mind does what we call vyavahara, does its worldly transactions. The mind will have preferences. Inside, shitala, it's cool. You probably remember the old beat term, "Be cool, boy." The yogis invented the term. Shitala, cool. fever. It's gone. Who am I? What is this world? How has it come about? Those are the three questions. Who am I? Aham Brahmasmi. I am Brahman, that consciousness. What is this world? It too is Brahman. How has it come about? Lord's imagination. Sambhava. Pretty pictures. Any thoughts on this?
Is that a permanent state, the coolness, or does the coolness come and go?
Well, I didn't get that. If it goes, I'll let you know. Go there and find out. If we still have doubts, keep doing practice. If the mind still reacts, we still have tapas to do. But each person works it out for themselves. I think it's the poet Hafiz who has a wonderful image. If there's reactivity, it's like what in English we call a dust devil. So you have to imagine that you're in an arid climate and the wind has created just this little dust devil. It's like a tiny, tiny little, vortex. It picks up the dust and it goes. So, your husband may annoy you. Let it go. Goodness, I'm sure he never annoys you. Does that help?
Yes, thank you.
And I used to have trouble with this kind of thing because, like, we'd be at a meal with Swamiji in the Bhojasala. And it was very clear he had preferences. He loved spicy food. Someone had made a dish that was a Malayali, a South Indian dish. Oh, he loved it. He loved chocolate. He loved to drive fast in cars, faster, faster. Loved it. I thought he was supposed to, be detached, stuff like that. And it doesn't mean that we are aragya. Doesn't mean we're like a stone without feelings. It just means nothing holds, nothing lasts, nothing lands. Is that useful?
Yes, thank you.
And I think underneath that is the question is, I'm still reacting, Jim. Will it go away? Is that the real question?
It's like, oh, my mind is just, I know it's spinning and I want it to go away.
Yeah, just keep doing the practice. Jnana Abhyasa.
Jim, with that vision, he would not have any fear of going 130 miles and then in a curve. Just that fear that I would have to be in the car with that speed in the hairpin turn.
Well, I don't know. I've never been in a car going 130 miles an hour. But I do know the body itself has some instinctual reactions. What I can tell you, for example, is if I'm crossing the street and I don't see well, and all of a sudden I hear screeching tires, do I feel the adrenaline rush through my body? Yeah. It's a physiological response to, the sudden sound. So I don't know. I don't know. It's not one of my objects of desire, let's put it that way. Riding in a fast car. I get vertigo. I have mild acrophobia. If I'm in an elevator, glass elevator on the outside of a building and it's going up, my start going, it's a physiological response. It's not really fear. It's something my body does. Each person works this out for themselves. All right. We'll do one more.
Jnata jnana bheda pare natmani vidyate chidananda chidananda nandaika rupatva dipyate swayameva hi. There are no distinctions such as knower, knowledge, and the object of knowledge in the Supreme Self. Since it is of the nature of homogeneous consciousness and bliss, the Self has no such distinctions within itself. It shines by itself.
All right. That's too dense a verse for me to be able to cover in 4 minutes. So we'll take it up. What number is that one?
41.
41. Okay, we'll take it up next week. Do we have any thoughts or questions before we end? We'll end a few minutes early tonight again. All right. Om Purnamada Purnamidam Purnat Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnameva Vachishyate. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Hari Om. Sri Guru Pyo Namaha. Hari Om.